In this video, I'm going to explain some methods that you can use to increase the amount of reps that you can do for bodyweight exercises. The methods I'm about to list apply for those of you who can already do at least 5 clean reps of your desired movement. If you can't do 5 reps of, let's say, a pull-up for example, it'll be more productive to utilize these methods for a lower progression, such as the bodyweight row. You'll also need a good understanding of basic exercise mechanics and which muscles are involved in each movement, and you should also be capable of doing at least a couple reps with perfect form. I go more into depth about these requirements in my previous video, which is more suitable for complete beginners. Training to increase reps is just one way to progressively overload your workouts or to gradually increase the demand that you place on your body to achieve progress in strength and physical development. You can always progressively overload by training for more difficult movements or adding weight, but this video is purely how you can progressively overload to perform more reps. Here are a few approximate rep ranges for specific training purposes. Working within the 2 to 6 rep range mostly trains for strength, while exercises in the 8 to 15 range are more optimized for muscle hypertrophy or stimulating your muscles to grow in size. Once you pass the 20 to 25 rep range, you will be mostly training for muscular endurance. All these ranges that you can train in have overlapping benefits. You will always gain some sort of strength or muscular development no matter what range you're training in, as long as you practice progressive overload and you have proper nutrition. Personally, my main training consists of low rep strength work, but I always find a good boost in my physique whenever I train for hypertrophy and endurance. Training for a high amount of reps will force your body to adapt to an increasing volume work capacity, and you'll be able to endure longer workouts and longer sets. If you are a beginner, this will also be helpful if you're simply looking to hit a target rep goal or target rep range if you want to train for hypertrophy or endurance, or to reach a level of mastery in a movement. Now, as per my usual formula, I'm going to divide this video into 3 sections: how to expose your limitations, how to adapt your body to high volume training, and how to increase your reps with instability training. And one of the best ways to deduce your limitations and your weak points is to perform a maximum repetitions test. And a max test is also just a good way to measure your progress over time, so I recommend doing them once in a while. Now, before you jump in and do a max test right now, make sure that you have at least been training consistently for a couple of weeks. You never want to jump directly into a max test after days of no training and also no warm-up, as you're not going to be able to perform at your best. Keep in mind that max testing should also not be done too frequently, as it is incredibly stressful on your central nervous system, and overdoing it may lead to burnout, loss of motivation, and regression in your training. It is also fair to note that max testing has the capability of interfering with your workout schedule, as in you will probably be too sore to train the same movement for several days after your max test if you do attempt your test with the highest intensity. Personally, I would recommend not doing this more than once every 2 weeks. When you do go for your max test, make sure you are properly warmed up and then try to execute as many reps as you can with good form and a full range of motion. Now, the reason why I say good form is this will help you find out your true max. If you are executing every movement with full range of motion, you will find that it is easier to find out what your limitations are. These limitations can come from 3 main things: grip, muscle, and range of motion. Now, let's take grip for example. If you're nearing the end of your max test and you feel like you can do more pull-ups, but your hands are slipping from the bar, then the grip is preventing you from doing more pull-ups rather than your back or your biceps. To solve this, throw in some sets of dead hangs after your working sets to condition your grip. Now, muscle limitations come from individual muscle groups limiting your ability to perform compound movements. In a dip, for example, your prime movers are going to be your triceps, your anterior deltoid, and your chest. If you find that your triceps are disproportionately sore compared to your chest and shoulders after performing dips, then throw in some exercises to isolate your triceps again after your working sets. Your main workout should always be the compound movements themselves when you're training with body weight, and then after you're done with your sets, that's when you do isolation or conditioning work. Now, for range of motion limitations, you might find that you get stuck in a certain point of a movement. Maybe it's getting your chin over the bar in a pull-up or locking out your arms at the top of a dip. If you find that this is the case for you, then obviously you lack strength in that range of motion. To fix this, it's quite simple. Spend more time in the range that you're weak in. You can do this by performing some half reps, or you can incorporate isometric holds, where you hold a certain position for an amount of time. Now in this section, I'm going to run through a few different training styles that will increase your endurance, which is essential to being able to increase your rep maxes. First of all, you never want to make any drastic jumps in volume in your training, such as going from doing 20 pull-ups a day to 100 pull-ups a day within a week. Your body needs time to adapt, and shocking your muscles too frequently can lead to CNS fatigue and injuries. Always start with a volume and intensity that you're used to, and then slowly increase your total volume or your total reps from session to session. One way to build volume and endurance is to perform combination sets, or sets where you perform a certain amount of reps of one move, followed by a different exercise, and then followed by a different exercise, so on and so forth. This is where you can get creative with your training, but I recommend keeping it simple so you can track your progress easier. You can invent all different types of sets and then set different number goals to reach. You can also do ascending or descending sets, or any type of sets where you modify the numbers and then slowly increase the numbers over time. Now, if you're training for a competition or you're purely trying to hit the most amount of reps possible for a movement, speed is key. This also means that in order to train for speed, there will be an inevitable decrease in control and also your form. Even though it's better to fully control both the eccentric and concentric portions of a movement to build muscle and strength, you can get more reps in if you decrease the amount of control in your eccentric phase, such as just simply catching yourself rather than slowly lowering yourself down. To train for speed, I recommend timed sets where you try to perform as many reps as possible in a set time window, such as doing 10 push-ups in 20 seconds, and then over time increasing the amount of reps or decreasing the amount of time, and so on. Now, one of my favorite types of sets to increase muscular endurance is the every minute on the minute set. To do this, I usually take a movement where I know what my maximum reps is, and I take around 20 to 35% of that and perform that amount of reps every minute on the minute. For example, if my max dips is 15, I'll set a stopwatch and do 3 to 5 reps every time the clock passes the minute mark. The amount of rest you'll have is dependent on the speed at which you finish your set, but it'll always be less than a minute. Since your body might usually need more than 1 minute to fully recover between sets, you're forcing yourself to push out more reps before your body is ready. Now again, if my max reps of dips is 15, I would usually set a goal to be able to do 10 minutes or 10 sets of 3 to 5 with the same amount of reps in each set. At first, it might be very difficult to make it all the way through, but over time you want to be able to write down and achieve these goals. Since some of the methods I just mentioned, such as the every minute on the minute set, are endurance sets, I would recommend not training them more than once a week. Additionally, since you're training for endurance, it's acceptable to not perform every rep as cleanly as humanly possible. This doesn't mean you should do excessive kipping or do micro reps. You should aim to improve your form and control over time as a way to progressively overload. Personally, one of the most effective methods in my training to increase my reps was to work with unstable surfaces. A great example of this is gymnastic rings. This is equivalent to using free weights instead of barbells in weightlifting, where the movement path is less fixed, requiring you to exert more of your power for stabilization. This is one of the best pieces of equipment you can invest in to really level up your relative strength, as a few months of training a movement on rings can really boost your numbers when you go back to a stable surface. Now, I recommend that you can do at least 10 reps of an exercise on a stable surface before you try them on rings. Once you have met this requirement, aim to be able to hold a simple ring support position comfortably. When you first try this, it might be incredibly difficult to keep yourself up and it might be shaky, but your body will also quickly adapt within a few sessions of consistent training. You can perform push-ups, rows, pull-ups, and dips on rings, but note that they are a lot more intense than their normal versions. Now, as you don't want to change up your training methods too frequently, I would usually recommend that you plan out a few weeks or a few months where you will focus on a style of training that meets your goals. When I train for reps, I usually followed a pattern of 2 to 3 months of progressively overloading using these training methods, ending with a maximum repetitions test, and then followed by a deload of around 1 week. where I simply rest or train at a very low intensity to allow my body to recover before restarting the process. Anyways, I hope these methods are of some use to you. I hope you can use these videos as a reference in your own training. Again, whatever your goals may be, it's always a great idea to either film yourself or write down your workouts in a notebook, so in the future you can look back on how much you've improved. Be consistent and motivation will come when it wants to.